This theater and the $1 Million Theater are among two finest theaters in the country. No question about it.
Well, do you think we take them for granted or just don't know about them at all?
Of course we do. I think the average person going to a movie goes to the movie house that's closest by. And they're usually little boxes, little black boxes. And I'll tell you one thing, Huell, to go into a big theater where there's a comedy like Harold Lloyd in Safety Last, the laughter is contagious. It just goes over the theater and just rolls over the theater. You can't get that feeling when you're just sitting home looking at TV. You may chuckle, but you don't laugh, ha, 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 and they're just screaming with joy. It's really something. And you only have that in a big theater.
Well, I hate to say it, though, but when you look around and you look at the ceiling of a theater like this, it would physically hurt me to see this place torn down.
I'll tell you, it is. When the Fox Theater in San Francisco was demolished, we all cried, even from this distance. That was such a gorgeous house, such a magnificent theater. I played one of the last programs there. We did Douglas Fairbanks Sr. in Mark of Zorro, and that was the first and last silent movie in that theater because the Fox Theater in San Francisco came in after sound had arrived. Wow. So that this was the only time they had a sound. But that picture was it was like the Metropolitan Opera House, much grander. The Fox Theater in San Francisco was one of the most glorious buildings I've ever been in.
And it's gone.
It's gone, and there's a shabby, drab office building on the lot. And you know that now this is I may not have my figures right, but I understand that theater was offered by the government in San Francisco to the people of San Francisco for $14 million as a hall for the San Francisco Symphony, and it was voted down and rejected. Then the symphony builds a symphony hall up on a little further out in San Francisco, cost them $46 million. Yeah. So they missed a golden opportunity.
What do you think we would lose? What do you think we lose when these theaters are torn down?
Well, a chance to savor a little magnificence, which we don't have an awful lot of these days. But it's an experience like no other experience to come into a place like this with all the opulence, the lights, and maybe an orchestra in the pit, and all sorts of goings on. It's a thrill.
We have now opened up the organ, which is still here at the theater. And what organ is this?
This is the original organ that was built for this theater and one of the few original organs left in the USA.
So it has been here since?
1931.
And it's still working?
It sure is.
And so are you.
Oh, hooray.
Can you give us something to kind of get us in the, what are you going to play for?
I'm going to play a little piece for you called I Love You, California. It's written by a guy by the name of Silverwood, and he owned a bunch of clothing stores, Silverwood's men's stores.
And this is I Love You, California. This is our state song. To end our program and to try to put all of this in some kind of context, we are back literally where we started at the Orpheum Theater. I'm standing here with Bob Harris, who, among other hats you have worn and are wearing, you are the co-chair of the Strategic Downtown Plan. Is that correct?
Right.
Which kind of was this grand plan that's put together for the development, the redevelopment, the future of downtown Los Angeles. So my question is, where do the historic theaters fit into all of this?
The historic theaters are right in the middle, and to say in the middle is important because when people think about downtown, they think about that area to the west of Broadway, the sort of new area and the area that has been developed in the last 20 years. But what we understand about the downtown is also an area to the east of Broadway, an extraordinary industrial area, and of course there's also the Spring Street historic core as well. So Broadway's right in the middle, and the theaters are right in the middle of an area which has extraordinary potential, and I know the word potential is used all the time. Well, swell, what are we going to do about it? Well, let me describe some things going on. We're not very far from the garment district. We're not very far from the jewelry district, just a few blocks up, really thriving. If we go to the north end of this street and of the theaters, where the $1 Million Theater is and other things, we're in the midst of an area that the state has just made an enormous new commitment about to consolidate along Spring Street and 4th Street, office space for another 3,000 workers. Nearby there, Angel's Flight is about to be finished, and the construction is scheduled maybe for later this year, and that'll connect all of Bunker Hill right into the historic district. So there are things happening all around, more people, more activity. Pershing Square is just reopened. The Conservancy continues to do what it can to bring people's attention to the theaters so that they won't be forgotten, because some of them are now swap meets and churches.
Yeah, and let me
all
interrupt
those
you for a
things.
minute, because this is what worries me, is that sometimes these strategic plans and these grand plans take time, as well they should. But you know what? We're losing these theaters very, very quickly.
That's what's special about the strategic plan. It's not a master plan that says, well, these are all the things which will be done, and they'll all be done in time and in their place. It's a set of strategies. And those strategies can go forward at almost any moment. Well, a lot of them center on this historic district. When you talk about the historic district, then you're necessarily talking about the theaters. There's a big study which has just been completed on them that talks about their, I'm told, their use as a center for Hispanic cultural activities. I think it can be much broader than that. I had conversation in just the last couple of days with someone. I don't know that I should reveal it, but has to do with one of the major studios wanting to take over one of these theaters and bring it back to life, maybe one of the principal ones. We need a first step to be taken, and our plan was just approved on August the 2nd. This is August the 22nd. I think it's going to take more than 20 days, but we're moving. And what is it going to take? Well, it's going to take a lot of little steps as well as maybe a couple of big ones. And one theater coming to life, because it has the right kind of forward-looking sponsorship, could make all the difference.
Well, I want to be optimistic, and I want to, but we're standing here, and turn around, Louis, and look, because there's the Rialto Theater down there. It's now a swap meet. It's gone forever. It's ripped apart. The Los Angeles Theater is closed. It's no longer being used to show movies. The $1 Million Theater is a church now.
Yeah, but they're not gone and lost forever. Actually, one of the things which is happening with them is that during this period of time, there are some alternate uses. What really kills historic buildings is when there aren't any alternate uses at all. So at least there's some alternate uses. I mean, it's hard to be optimistic given the history and given that I'm not here today telling you about something that's already settled. But I think it's also a mistake then to just look at these theaters one after another, sort of in isolation, and say, well, there's a group of derelict theaters. What I was trying to describe before is that we're in the midst of a larger area. That larger area is thriving. It's not actually down in the dumps, but thriving, and so I think the prospects, the short-term and long-term prospects, are good. There's some things that need to happen, and And as a result of the city just approving, I mean, it's now public policy, the directions of the downtown plan, we're all getting busy right now on trying to take those things further. And they're particular steps, one after another, real projects that we just need to get underway. One that's really interesting, that would help enormously, I'm convinced, is something that was going to be an electric trolley bus that go up and down Broadway between the convention center and Union Station. Union Station being the principal transportation hub for the region in a way. That project's been put on hold, but I don't understand why we couldn't have the right color painted buses still going between the convention center, Union Station, and think of the tourist connections. Chinatown, Olvera Street and El Pueblo, Union Station itself, this Broadway Historic Center, and eventually across and over to the convention center. That's a trip everybody coming to conventions would take, and I imagine people by transit, not very long from now, coming to Union Station, getting on one of those buses or on an electric trolley, coming to one of these theaters for a night out on the town. In 1930, this was the greatest collection of movie palaces in the world, and it wasn't called Broadway for nothing. It was the New York Broadway's alternate here in Los Angeles. That can happen again, and I appreciate your interest in it now. I sense everybody's frustration. My message today is hang on.
Yeah.
We're working at it.
I sure hope this old theater hangs on. I'd hate to see us lose it, and you know I'm by nature a very optimistic person.
You had to be here this summer for the Last Remaining Seats program, Los Angeles Conservancy. Thousands of people came and went through these theaters and had a great time.
And I know the love there is out there for them.
But I mean, they actually came. They actually came downtown. They parked. They walked around. They did things. They went to these theaters. They had a great time. Part of it vaudeville, because they were vaudeville theaters and they have performances, and part of it historic movies. There still are movies being shown here which are immediate and current as well as historic.
So as we end this, are you optimistic?
I'm
because you know I want to be optimistic.
I think more than optimistic, energetic is the word for all of us right now. We don't know whether to be optimistic or not, but unless we're energetic, it won't happen. So there are a lot of people who are energetic, and as I say, our plan is just finished. We have a real direction, and now's the time for action.
Well, maybe what we should do as we end is put the telephone number for the Los Angeles Conservancy across the bottom of the screen, because people can not only write the Conservancy, but they can come down here on Saturday mornings and take the Downtown Historic Theaters tour. And they can also write or call their council people, the mayor's office, any elected official who might have anything to do with the redevelopment of downtown, and let them know that they think saving these theaters and rejuvenating them and making them come back to life is very important.
They might even get a group of 15 or 20 people together and patronize the theaters.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wouldn't
hurt.
The
Orpheum is open.
The Orpheum's open. It's a decent movie. It'd be a great thing on a Saturday afternoon for a birthday party to bring a whole bunch of kids downtown where they've never been and go to a movie.
Well, we're ending on an optimistic note, as always, down here on this wonderful street in front of one of the last great movie palaces on Broadway. Hopefully things are going to get even better. That's been our tour of the movie palaces of Broadway.